Good afternoon. So, Jeremy Jones again, back with you for our second episode of our podcast. Look, the reason I'm laughing is my original plan was to do a podcast a week. Now, I knew that things would come up and we'd have breaking stories, so every once in a while I would put one out there. But frankly, in my second episode, sounds like a lot of reverb. I was going to explain that hey, sometimes I'm going to have extra episodes when news breaks, but here we are having a breaking news story literally the day that I just put out the introduction podcast. In fact, there was a serious debate that I was going to actually do this episode before I published the introduction episode, but I don't consider myself to have a serious case of OCD, but I have enough to know that I want episode 1 to be the first episode that goes out, unlike NASA, where they have their space shuttle missions and everything go out of order. But there's a legitimate reason for that. But nonetheless, we're not NASA, and we're going to try to keep the issues in order. So, what brought this up? Why do we have a special episode in less than 24 hours after we start the podcast? We have a government agency suing another government agency within the same county. There's been a lot of talk about it on Facebook, so if you're local, you probably already know about it. If you've gotten all your information from Facebook, you have no idea really what's going on because there's a bunch of crap out there that frankly is just not true, or certainly being misstated. There's a group of people who think the school board does everything wrong and the county commission hung the moon and they can't do anything wrong, and then vice versa. And then my favorite aspect of the whole thing is there's a group who thinks that everybody on the school board's idiots and they should be voted out, and everybody on the commission board is idiots and they should be voted out. And now those people have to pick a side and say which one's right and which one's wrong, despite them thinking that both of them are wrong all the time. So, as promised, and the reason I wanted to do my podcast is to dive into these things and kind of explain them much better than I can in just a Facebook post. So let's hit the ground running on this one. Here's what happened. The school board filed a petition, a complaint in court to sue the county commission. Now, sue is not being used in the way that a lot of people think about it. They're not asking for money. They're asking for the commission to do something. It's called a writ of mandamus, petition for writ of mandamus. And what that is that's easy way to say it is it's somebody saying, I demand you do something, your job. I demand you do your job. And so it's not an uncommon type of lawsuit. Most of the time, well, I don't know if most is accurate, but all the cases I know of are usually within the government telling the other government agency what to do, though individuals certainly can. And speaking of individuals who certainly can, I've come with a history lesson. The most famous case ever, maybe, I don't know if it's the most famous case, but every lawyer knows it. It is why we have the judicial review that we have today. Why? Have you ever thought of when the Supreme Court says something that's the end-all, be-all? Why do we do that? There's nothing in the Constitution that says once the Supreme Court says it, you're done. So why do we do that? Well, it goes back to a case called Marbury versus Madison. And it was a very early case in our history, Madison as in James Madison. And the Supreme Court justice that wrote it is Justice John Marshall, which is the namesake for the law school that I went to. And in that case, he was suing to demand that he be given his appointment for, I think it was Secretary of State. A better host would have gone through and done the research before the so it's a very famous case. It's a case that all lawyers learn when they start out, despite me butchering it here tonight. But that's not going on in Catoosa County. What's going on is the writ of mandamus, and what the school board is demanding that the county commission does is issue a bond that they want for the money for their e-splosh. Now, one of the commissioners came out today, Commissioner Tharp. Now, when I get on here and I start talking about these people, unlike a lot of people out there in the social media world, I'm not a keyboard warrior. I'll say these things to their face, and as far as I'm concerned, what we talk about in politics is about politics. It has nothing to do with the person as a person. It has to do with what they're doing in their job, and I might critique their job, criticize their job, compliment their job, whatever the case may be, but what I think of them as a person is rarely going to change based on what they do as an official. So let's get into it. So the Commissioner Tharp put up a video today, and he did so in part because he says he was the only commissioner that was named, and what he means by that, the lawsuit itself has every commissioner named. That's what they have to do. But inside of the petition, it says, and Commissioner Tharp went up and started asking questions or something to that effect. So Commissioner Tharp felt it incumbent upon him to put out a video. If I was the attorney for the commission, I don't know if I would have been too happy about that, but that's not my business. So that's he could do what he wants, and he did. But people took what he said the wrong way, and I don't believe for a second that he said it in a way that he meant to say. He did not mean to say it in the way people interpret it. So what I mean by that, here's what's going on. The eSPLOS, which is 1 penny sales tax that goes to the school system for defined items. Defined items mean what was on the ballot. And everybody pretty much knows how the SPLOS work. It's been around this area forever. I know I have viewers from out of state. You may not understand it. Just think of it as a penny sales tax. That's penny sales tax that has dedicated to where it's going to go. Now, as you can imagine, these SPLOS money comes in as people buy things. And the SPLOS program is, I think, for a 5-year term. Well, some projects, they want all their money now. And they can't get the money now because it's not like Walmart's going to say, well, here's $5 million for the sales tax that I'm going to owe over the next year. As it gets collected, it gets turned in. So what is not an uncommon thing to do is a government will go out and sell bonds. And these are very, very strong bonds in the sense that very, very low risk for the bondholder. And since it's such a low risk, they're pretty low rates as well. So the school board has always done, and I don't like to use absolutes, so I'm not going to say they've done it every single time, but I've looked them up, and it's been done most of the time. I haven't found a time they didn't. Maybe there has been, but I have not found one. But they always issue the bonds. And what Commissioner Tharp said today was, I was asking questions because I was wondering why are we going to pay, and by we he means the school board, but the taxpayers, and he made that clear. He's a taxpayer of Catoosa County. He has every right to ask these questions as a taxpayer. Why are we as taxpayers going to spend $10 million on interest when we don't have to do that and we can just pay for things as they go? It's not a real bad question to ask, but there's a very simple answer to it. And, people act like, and this not Commissioner Tharp, but other people act like that these commissioners and these board members live in some type of vacuum and all they do are the dumbest things in the world. And they just purposely pick what's the dumbest thing I can do today. Nobody who is an elected official thinks that spending $10 million for no reason is a good idea. I assure you, everybody who saw that $10 million price tag knows it's a good idea, or at least they believe it's a good idea based on the information they have. And here's how it's a good idea. First of all, it's a low interest rate. As I said earlier, it's a very low risk bond. And the reason that it saves the county money, in this case the school board money, is they're able to pay for the projects up front. And they get to and not have to worry about the cost of inflation, because as inflation goes, prices go up. Construction goes up, things go up. When they get all that money, they also put what they haven't spent yet into their own savings account, so they're making money on that interest. It is a lower amount of interest, of course, but it's still some interest. So while the line item on the budget is going to say we're spending $10 million on this, there's also going to be a line item in the budget that says we have gotten $2 million in interest because of the money that we have sitting in the bank. There's also savings, as I said, for paying for the projects up front. As I said, they've done it all the time. It doesn't take an economic genius to kind of see this at the 30,000-foot view, but it does take a pretty smart person to get down to the nuts and bolts of it. I'm not saying I'm that person, but unlike a lot of people, I have researched it, and I did take some classes in college about governmental funding and how these things work. So when the government gets these projects, you have two factors going on. First of all, what are the current interest rates? What are they having to pay to get that money? And we are a little bit higher than we've been in the past, because in the past there was some 0%. I mean, the rates were zero. When I say rates were zero, that was the Fed rate between banks, or what the banks have to pay the Feds. And they're not zero now, but they're still pretty low. And we don't have deflation going on, because that's the risk that you take when you buy these bonds. If there's deflation, or if the rates are too high, then you will lose money on the deal. And I think it's an educated guess. It's a calculated risk that we believe that inflation is going to continue to go up. We believe that things that we build 4 years from now will be more expensive compared to what they would be today. So let's pay for them today, and they'll get built as time goes on. Again, they've done this just about every time. So it's not a cost of $10 million. There is a savings to it. And the powers that be have run the numbers. They've made their assumptions, and they believe that it's going to save money. And that's what elected officials do. And you can disagree with them. You can think that that's not going to happen. I think history will prove that they have saved money in the past by doing this every time, especially when we're at near record low interest rates and record high inflation. Maybe not record high inflation. That's back in the 70s, but higher inflation. But think of this. Think of if you have a major hurricane come through, construction materials are going to go up. And in some of these contracts that the school system will work out, they will have locked-in prices. Now, most contractors do have clauses in their contracts that allow for changes to be made for some of those raw materials, but you're still getting the prices locked in today, and that's it's going to be beneficial. Likewise, there's a risk of not doing it. There's a risk, no matter which method you choose, there's a risk. Now, what a lot of people are talking about is that this is some surprise and what the heck's going on. And I just have to laugh about that, because it's not a surprise. Not only is it not a surprise, it was pretty much announced to you. So what we have here, and they included it in the petition, and my favor that I do to you is I read everything. And I explain it to you. So part of the lawsuit is they first have to prove what they're saying is true. And so as silly as it is in law, you have to prove every single thing in a lawsuit, and they have to prove that ESPLOS passed. Well, everybody knows ESPLOS passed. It's intuitively obvious, but it still has to be proven within the four corners of the document. So they put a copy of it in there. And it's a long, drawn-out thing. Everybody knows, has seen it. I doubt very many people actually read it when they went to the ballot box. I encourage people to read it before they go. That's why they print sample ballots. But I will concede the fact that, or concede the point that all of this mumbo jumbo down here is just listing everything that they want to buy with the ESPLOS money. And you might want to stick ice picks through your eyeballs before you finish reading all of that. But what's in, you can't do bold letters on a ballot initiative, but what is in its own separate sentence at the very end, right before you check the yes or no. In other words, it's something that should stand out to anybody who was voting. If imposition of the tax is approved by the voters, such vote shall also constitute approval of the issuance of a general obligation debt of the Catoosa County School District in a principal amount not to exceed $49 million. It was on the ballot. It was exactly what has been on the ballot every time. It's exactly what they've always done. This is how ESPLOS works. It's part of the plan. Now, you can argue the plan. You can debate the plan, whether it's a good plan or a bad plan. People voted against ESPLOS because they didn't think that we should be spending pennies to fund education or whatever the reason might be. I've opposed ESPLOS in the past. I've supported ESPLOS in the past. There are plenty of reasons to support and to oppose it. But all of the reasons that you had to support it were included in the ballot and in the language for it. And it's right there. So anybody out there who supported ESPLOS, who is now out here saying that it's wrong that they're asking for a bond so they can get the money up front, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's on the paper. It's on the ballot. Voters have some amount of responsibility to some amount of research when these initiatives come up. I mean, I'm out there all the time talking about what's going on. I don't remember if I specifically said this, but I know that there are people out there. I mean, I read it because some people talk about one of the reasons you don't want to do the SPLOS is it can obligate the county to pay for certain monies, and if the monies don't come in, they still have to pay it. Now, that's a boogeyman argument, and here's why I say that. eSPLOS is expected to bring in about $100 million, okay? And that's best estimates based on the economic forecast and the relatively conservative. Some might argue about that, but, you know, it is what it is. They have their models that they've used, and they've never been astronomically wrong. The most they can get in debt is $49 million. So they can only get in debt for 50%. Now, if their forecasts are wrong, or if we have an economic downturn, it's not going to be to the tune of 50% of the projection. The money's still going to come in. We're still going to get that money, okay? So I don't see it to be a very big gamble in the grand scheme of things. We know it is possible, likely, to save money because we know historically it has saved money. I mean, that's what investing is, and however you want to look at it, this is part of an investment. In fact, they call it when they're advertising for eSPLOS and promoting it, they were saying invest in the future, invest in our kids. And, you know, you have to spend money to make money, as they say. You have to spend money to get money. You have to do these things, and one of the ways to maximize the strength of those pennies is to get as much bang for your buck, or bang for your penny, if you will. And issuing these bonds is what they believe is the best way to do it. If you disagree with it, you disagree with it. That's fine. But it is, no matter how you look at it, this is not a $10 million item line that all of a sudden we're all on the hook for that nobody knew was coming. It is $10 million, but it undoubtedly will be less than that for two reasons. Number one, there's going to be interest on the front end that they are going to earn from it. Number two, there will be savings because of some projects getting paid for in advance, even if it's not as much savings as they project. So I don't know what to tell you, but that's what it is. But here's the bigger thing. This lawsuit has two counts. Count one is what we've been talking about. Count one is the headline. Count one is what everybody sees. I think the magic is in count two. Count two is the reason I think this thing even got done. Now, I make fun of people who wear their tinfoil hats all the time and say that the government's actually trying to sneak something by you. And maybe I have to get my own little tinfoil hat out for this one. But count two, declaratory judgment. So the next thing that's in this lawsuit is the school board doesn't want to have this fight again. They don't want to have to come back to the commission to say, hey, you are required to let us issue these bonds. The law says you have to. The voter said you had to. Everything says you have to. So go vote for it. Get this done so we can get our bonds and we can move on. Okay? That's what count one is telling them to do. But count two is saying, we don't want to have to fight for this again. So, Judge, while you're at it, while you're telling this commission what they need to do, just go ahead and make a rule that says, you know what, every commission from now forever, unless the law changes, of course, but as long as this law is exactly as it is right now, then everybody else has to do it too. I don't want to come back to court. This is how it's going to be done forever. I don't believe there's a commissioner sitting on our commission right now who's going to fight this. I don't believe that anybody's going to vote no. I don't believe any. In fact, I don't. There may be, which is called an agreed order, when it all comes down to it, that the commission says, yeah, school board, I agree with you. That's what we're going to do. And agree to count one and to count two, and that will prevent any of these people who are trying to win commission seats that if they do win, they can't get in there and then start voting against what the school board's budget proposal is, or vote against the school board's bond issues if those happen to come up during these new people's terms. That's my idea. Well, Jeremy, why would they want to do that? Here's why. Because there are nut jobs out there who have been trying to win seats on the commission who have said that they don't believe they have to approve the budget that the school board submits. And that's in black and white. They do have to approve it. The school board establishes what they want for their money. They get first dibs at our property tax money. So there is no doubt in my mind that well, first of all, no. There's no doubt in everybody's mind that there are people in our community who have run for county commission, who have supported people who are running for county commission, who believe that the county commissioners can override the school system on the school system's budget. So they're afraid if they get into office and they win a county commission seat, that they're going to fight and they're going to say, you know what, we're not going to let you do what the law says. We're not going to issue these bonds. I think the whole magic of this lawsuit is all in count 2. So read everything. That's what I have to do, and it's hard. Look, this is a 65-page lawsuit. Now, the actual meat of the lawsuit, if you want to call it that, is a lot shorter than that. It's only 8 pages. The rest of it are exhibits, but those exhibits are important. But as I read it, especially after I saw Commissioner Tharp's video today, where he was saying, "I know I got to vote for it. Everybody has to vote for it." Well, I'm thinking, well, why do we have to sue for it? Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe they should have done it at the last meeting. I don't know. I haven't gotten to those details, and the only way I'm going to get those details is to get the school board member or a county commission member to go on the record for it, and I'm not that type of person who's going to put them in that position. So my first breaking news podcast comes within 24 hours of me opening my podcast. I certainly hope that I have enough time to get this edited tonight. You'll see in my first podcast, didn't do a great job of editing, but we got something out there. My goal in these podcasts is to try to keep them between 15 and 30 minutes. This one looks like it's going to be about 25 to 30. I wish I could have kept it shorter. Maybe I'll edit it down a little bit. I don't know, but that's the end of it. That's the gist of it. This is all about protecting the future and making sure that the school system gets the money that they are entitled to via the Constitution of Georgia and the voters of Catoosa County. Thanks for listening. I look forward to talking to you soon. As always, if you have suggestions that you want, please leave a message. Send me a message through Facebook, YouTube, however. These will be put up on a new podcast channel eventually. Right now, we're just doing YouTube. But I will read all your comments, and we'll love to have and engage and share some information with you. Thanks again, everybody.